the son of a Lutheran minister. He took over a small-town newspaper at the age of 19 and on its front page took on the mob and the local machine. He joined the Army and served in counterintelligence along the Iron Curtain. Elected to the legislature at 25, he was an early voice for civil rights and passed our first open meeting law. The Independent Voters Association rated him best legislator every year he served. And then he went to Washington to speak the conscience of Illinois. In a town meeting, he heard firsthand about missing children and passed the first federal bill to help find them. He's fought for the balanced budget constitutional amendment, and First Lady Barbara Bush praised his leadership on the issue of literacy. When the cause of Eastern Europe hung in the balance, the New York Times said it was Paul Simon who steered through the Senate the bill that made the difference. From saving jobs for hundreds of railroad workers to the forgotten struggle of newborn infants addicted to crack. To him, no cause is too tough, no cause too small, when it's right. Leadership that cares, Paul Simon of Illinois.
During the day, I teach second graders. And now because of Senator Paul Simon's new adult literacy program, I'm also a volunteer helping adults like Mary and Vicki learn to read. Mary dropped out of school while Vicki came here as an immigrant. But now they're both learning, and in about 6 months, they'll be reading. Someday soon, they say they'll be sending a letter to a very special senator named Paul Simon, who helped them learn how to read and who turned their lives around.
Leadership that cares, Paul Simon of Illinois. Two years ago, the Chicago and Northwestern was about to stop running, and then Paul Simon stepped in. First, he passed a bill to hold a strike that would have stranded 41,000 passengers a day and put 700 workers out on the street. Then, when labor and management still couldn't agree, Senator Simon crafted a settlement and got both sides to live with it.
Some senators just give speeches in Washington, but with Paul Simon, we found out that a good senator can help save a good railroad.
Leadership that counts, Paul Simon of Illinois.
My name is Abe Stoller. I was born in Illinois. When I was young, I went with my parents to the Soviet Union, and I was made a Soviet citizen without my consent. I was there for 58 years with nowhere to turn. Senator Paul Simon came to Moscow to see me and negotiate with Soviet officials. He carried my case back to the floor of the United States Senate, and the Soviets finally let me go. I don't know how many years I have left, but because of Paul Simon, I'll spend them in freedom.
Heidi Deneen is one of the best young teachers we've ever had. She's here because of a talented teacher fellowship, an innovative idea to encourage the brightest high school and college students to go into teaching. The idea came from Senator Paul Simon, who fought for and passed the Talented Teacher Bill. Now the kids in this classroom are getting a great education. I'm the principal here at Gary Elementary, and I can tell you we're glad we've got Mrs. Deneen, and we're also glad we've got a senator like Paul Simon.
Leadership that cares, Paul Simon of Illinois. From his years as a small-town newspaper editor to the scores of columns and newsletters he's written as a senator, few people respect the power of the written word like Paul Simon. That's why he's fought so hard for education. He wrote the National Literacy Act and the Vista Literacy Program. He led the fight to save student loans. He's been a leader for early childhood education, for Head Start, the school lunch program, and child immunization. Paul Simon. In the Senate, he wrote the book on education. Senator Paul Simon, an uncompromising record of defending and protecting the environment. Paul Simon fought for the Water Quality Act to help clean up our groundwater. Paul Simon strengthened the Environmental Superfund and expanded cleanup efforts. Senator Paul Simon, right-to-know laws for workers exposed to toxic waste and a tough new law to make oil companies pay to clean up spills on the Great Lakes. Senator Paul Simon, endorsed by the Sierra Club, endorsed by the League of Conservation Voters. Paul Simon of Illinois.
All across America, wetlands are disappearing, and with them, hundreds of endangered species. One of the great wetlands in the Midwest was here in Illinois, along the Des Plaines, and now it's being restored because of the efforts of Senator Paul Simon. Senator Simon fought to preserve this fragile environment and to create a public-private partnership to heal and protect it. Every time I look at these wetlands, I'm stunned by the majesty of nature, and I'm impressed by the difference one senator can make.
Paul Simon of Illinois.
You feel so helpless. Babies born addicted to crack cocaine, only a few days old and suffering the nightmare of withdrawal. Now there's hope because one senator cared enough to notice. Paul Simon heard about these kids and wrote a law creating a special prenatal unit to help addicted mothers break their addiction and to give their babies the intensive care they need to make it. It's not the kind of thing that makes headlines, but to kids like these, it's the most important bill ever passed.
Paul Simon of Illinois.
You feel so helpless. Babies born addicted to crack cocaine, only a few days old and suffering the nightmare of withdrawal. Now there's hope because one senator cared enough to notice. Paul Simon heard about these kids and wrote a law creating a special prenatal unit to help addicted mothers break their addiction and to give their babies the intensive care they need to make it. It's not the kind of thing that makes headlines, but to kids like these, it's the most important bill ever passed.
Paul Simon of Illinois. An average of more than once a week for the past 6 years, he's come home to his state to listen and to learn. Paul Simon, 400 town meetings in every part of Illinois. From them have come a powerful sense of people and their needs, from concerns like missing children, to new ideas that help young families afford a first home, to the fundamental cause of saving Social Security. It's a special way to be a senator, a special bond with people. Paul Simon of Illinois.